Hi, hello, and welcome to the second installment of Gruesome Chats. I'm your host, Morbid. Today we will be discussing incels and answering the question, what are they? Incels is short for involuntary celibate, someone with a desire for sex and love but having no success. While the modern incel community is mostly young men, the term was actually coined in 1993 by a woman known only as Elena. She created an online community for these people called the Involuntary Celibacy Project. The purpose of this site was to be an online support group of sorts, not what it has become. It was meant to be a space for men and women who felt lonely, isolated, and unable to find relationships, basically a place of mutual help. Over time, sadly, this concept was lost, and Elena's neutral community of support became tainted and co opted. In the 2000s to 2010s, various male dominated message boards adopted the term incel and changed it. From a supportive place to a culture of misogyny, resentment, fatalistic views about sex and attraction, and even violent rhetoric. These modern extremist branches of inceldom have no connection to the original creator. Something else to note about incels is that they are not a formal group or organization. It's an online based subculture. Many incel communities congregate on anonymous forums and social media message boards. They were at one time 40,000 members strong on Reddit, on the forum r/incel, before it was banned in November of 2017. The reason for the ban was the content violating Reddit's rules on violent content and harassment. Reddit has cracked down on these forums multiple times over the years, taking down other forums with similar content. r/brain cells was banned in 2019. r/mgtow, or men going their own way, was banned in 2021. r/the red pill is currently quarantined on the site. r/incels without hate was also banned in 2021. Incels without hate was a purposeful and non-hateful incel space, but the platform still banned them, probably fearing it would cause them to slip back into their old hate-filled ways. This has caused a counter forum to crop up called r/incel tears that is still active and devoted to documenting and mocking incel content. This forum acts like a watchdog group. Users post screenshots of incel forums and subreddits to criticize them. It plays a significant role in tracking extremist rhetoric. I suggest checking it out if you want to be informed on the next wave of hate incels plan to push on social media. The incel ideology is rooted in deep misogyny. Many self-identified incels blame women for their lack of relationships and resent sexually successful men, the so-called chads. They see themselves as oppressed because they can't obtain what they believe they are owed: sex. Personally, I believe this is all rooted in entitlement. We touched on it in the case of Elliot Rodger, but I want to expand on the subject in this episode. These young men have been fed rhetoric from the so-called manosphere about their place in the world and the place of women in their world. We have seen them on social media parroting talking points about the fact that men are the deciders and the head of the household, while saying a woman's place is in the kitchen. Demeaning women and their contributions while saying they should be okay with being paid less since they do less work in favor of unpaid domestic labor. And unpaid domestic labor is their way of dismissing the enormous amount of work women actually do, bearing and raising children, managing the household, and keeping families fed and functioning. It's a way of minimizing women's labor and justifying the belief that women owe them something. And that's only for women who choose to have children. Women who are willingly childless are often treated even worse. What's surprising, or maybe not, once you understand this worldview, is that even the women who do follow their script, women who genuinely want to be wives and mothers, still receive the same vitriol as women who don't. It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario. No matter what a woman chooses, she's wrong. Nothing pleases them. Because in the end, they are always victims. Victims of women having rights, victims of women not wanting to be with them, victims of society, victims of other people being more successful, more attractive, and more confident. In their minds, everyone else is oppressing them simply by existing. But the truth is, they are not victims. They've adopted a victim mentality, a worldview where their pain is always someone else's fault and where responsibility never lands on them. Honestly, them being so pathetic has done the world a favor taking them out of the gene pool. Most incels are internet trolls, quiet and shy in real life, with a rich online fantasy life. But some corners are not like them. As we saw in the last episode, some corners of the incel community hold a deep hatred and hostility towards women and successful men. This escalates into their glorification of violent retribution, which is documented in multiple real-world cases, a few of which we will cover today. These cases are connected to the case we discussed in part 1. Each one of these young men explicitly cited Rogers as the reason and inspiration for their acts. The quote-unquote copycats were going ER, as it's known in the incel vocabulary. For the layman, that means going Elliot Rodger. A brief reminder that Elliot Rodger carried out a killing spree in Isla Vista in 2014, killing 6 and injuring 14 others before taking his own life. He cited his reason as an intense hatred of women and sexual rejection from the unjust social order. His very public online presence made him and his acts iconic in incel communities. He became a martyr-like and almost mythic figure to the rejected young men like himself. He was held a hero, the supreme gentleman, and the alpha online. His killings made him one of the widely foundational men that made the modern incel movement what it is today. From him, we got other acts of violence with climbing body counts. The first of the copycats was Chris Harper Mercer in the 2015 Umpqua Community College shooting in Oregon. October 1st of 2015, he walked into one of the college buildings and killed 9 people, then wounded several others. Once police arrived, Harper Mercer took his own life in their exchange of gunfire. In his manifesto, he complained of having no friends, no job, and no girlfriend. He stated he related to Elliot and his feelings of social isolation and sexual frustration. He expressed his admiration for Roger and his ideals that fueled his own violent intentions. One of the most well-known copycats of Rogers is a young man named Alec Manassian from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. On April 23rd of 2018, Manassian rented a van and drove down a packed Toronto sidewalk, killing 10 and injuring 15 others, mostly women, trying to emulate Rogers' spree. Before carrying out his attack, like Rogers, he also left an online message meant as a beacon for his crimes. The post read, Private Recruit Manassian Infantry 00010. Wishing to speak with Sergeant Forchan, please. 72324961. The incel rebellion has already begun. We will overthrow all the Chads and Stacys. All hail the supreme gentleman, Elliot Rodger. In interviews post-arrest, because unlike Elliot, he didn't take his own life, he was identified as an incel and said he felt he had accomplished his mission with the attack. Legally, he was convicted of 10 counts of first-degree murder and 16 counts of attempted murder and is now serving a life sentence. The last incel we will discuss today is Scott P. Borelli from Florida. On November 2nd of 2018, Borelli walked into a Tallahassee yoga studio and opened fire on the occupants. He killed 2 women and wounded others before taking his own life. He had a documented history of misogyny and sexual entitlement prior to the attack. He posted frequent videos and songs expressing his hatred for women, anger at being romantically rejected, and invoked common incel grievances. In his online content, he mentioned Rogers, his writings, and his actions with admiration, showing the symbolic place Rogers still has with the incel aligned violent actors. These young men were persuaded they were missing out on something that they were entitled to due to their gender. They were convinced they needed to have it, and without it, they were less than others who obtained it, even more so if the person was deemed unworthy by them. They were denied their birthright to sex and affection by women in society for giving us rights. They seek to degrade us, strip us of our rights, and make us dolls, idols for their pleasure. This may sound extreme, but it's only the tip of this disturbing iceberg. This is a post made by an incel in a public incel space. I want to warn you, this next section is graphic, so please continue with care. I want to legally own the rights to a Foid. This is bullshit. Why can't I just buy a Foid permanently and legally force it to do whatever I want? Owning a Foid should be as easy as owning property. You are free to do whatever the fuck you want with it. Use it, alter it, destroy it, etc. There should be large breeding farms dedicated to mass producing Stacy's and selling them like domesticated animals. Then I would be able to train a Foid and strip it of all of its unnecessary Foid-like qualities. If she ever misbehaves, I could simply correct her. They should legally be able to own Foids. I think that there should be a system in place where a Foid can permanently sell her legal right to do anything, and I can own and rape her. We can easily trick broken, stupid Foids into sacrificing their freedom and becoming the rape dolls they truly are. And it won't be illegal, as she technically agreed. I personally would own multiple Foids and rent them out for other people's uses. If one tries escaping, oh well, there goes a limb. Everything I just said is fictional. If any Foid were caught violating the law by disobeying her owner, she would have her eyes removed and her arms reattached to her anus. Everything I just said is fictional. As you can see, these fantasies are perverse. They're a major part of this community's online identity. The ease with which incels dehumanize and degrade other human beings is alarming enough to make you lose hope in humanity. And while not all incels are violent, many are perfectly comfortable participating in the kind of disgusting rhetoric that makes the more extreme among them feel justified, even empowered to commit these atrocities. Most of these men will never become violent, but the ones who do are usually easy to identify in hindsight. Deep personal grievances, untreated mental health struggles, profound social isolation, and constant exposure to extremist content. It mirrors the pathway we've seen in other forms of radicalization: political, racial, and religious, where alienation meets ideology and produces something dangerous. In fact, many researchers now classify incel-motivated violence as misogynistic terrorism or gender-based violent extremism. These are terms I've heard repeated again and again in news coverage about crimes committed against women. Years ago, HLN host Nancy Grace famously referred to this pattern of violence as the war on women, dedicating entire segments to gender-based violence. I remember watching these episodes, terrified of the world outside my front door, where horrible things were happening to women and where the warning signs were so often ignored until it was too late. Women harmed by partners, co-workers, family members, and even strangers. It was a terrifying introduction to the real world. One thing that a lot of women who speak out against this community are used to is the digital harassment campaign. After talking about these communities, women have reported being doxxed, harassed, and stalked online and in real life. Just like their violence spills off the online forums at times, so does the harassment and misogyny. A core tenet that we have touched on in incel ideology is their entitlement. They feel entitled to women's time, attention, and bodies. Once these targeted campaigns pour offline, you have women noticing people messaging them, infiltrating their everyday life, showing up where the women frequent, their workplaces, and hangouts from tagged posts, leaving notes, gifts, and even angry letters. People contacting their employers and family members, cornering them and demanding apologies for making them feel undesirable. Some incels report feeling owed closure, conversation, or romantic attention from the women they stalk. In the book Culture Warlords, writer Tal Lavin, formerly known as Talia, wrote of a campaign of hate against them that happened online. The writer shared a snapshot of an article written called Sexual Market Value in the Planned Economy of Inceldom. Basically, this article explained that sexually active women lost their value and would depreciate like a used car instead of as a human being. The writer, horrified by what they read, shared it on Twitter with the line, "They are human beings, but they live on a different planet, I think." This simple critique earned them a timeline flooded with images of roast beef sandwiches, with messages like, "Shut the fuck up, Roasty," "Found the Roasty," and "Roasty genocide soon, inshallah," or "if God wills." Even having a gift card for Arby's sent to their workplace. You may have figured out from context clues, but in case you didn't, roasty is an incel term for insufferable women and the anatomy of their genitals. They are implying a distended labia looks like roast beef. They believe that having excessive sexual partners causes this, when in fact it is a genetic issue that is not the person's fault, but try and explain that to an incel. I don't know about you, but I'm not taking opinions on genitalia from someone who has never seen a vagina in person. But that's just me. Another thing in incel culture is stalking framed as boundary breaking for the reason of romantic persistence. You will hear a lot about men talking about failing and that they will keep trying to win someone's affection. This is a trope in movies and TV shows that I can't stand. Once someone has turned you down, that's it. You get no other chances. But they believe in proving themselves through persistence and interpreting any interaction, even polite passiveness, as encouragement to keep trying. Do you even hear men say women are so rude and mean these days? This is why. Telling someone no politely is never heard anymore. You have to be loud and aggressive to get the person to leave you alone. In my 20s and clubs, you could see me and my group of friends yelling at men or barking at them, just anything to get them to leave us alone. We had rules. No one goes anywhere alone. No one takes a drink that's not from the bartender. And no one leaves alone. How sad is it that you have to have rules like this to make sure you and your friends make it home? That, as my mother told me, was the plight of being a woman, but damn is it exhausting. These types of men are why we have to live this way and why we have to watch our backs at every angle. They are why. In their echo chamber forums, these men encourage others to follow women home, track their schedules and social media. This is all in hopes of making their target fall in love with them, and it's honestly creepy. They also don't operate like typical stalkers. Their patterns differ in that they don't always stay in the shadows. The whole goal is to get your attention. They will have grand declarations of affection, rage at any boundaries, and blame the woman for leading them on. They will exhibit aggressive jealousy at male friends, coworkers, romantic partners, and family members. The scariest of these patterns is the emotional whiplash. They swing from extreme idolization to hatred with no warning, and perceived slights. These traits align perfectly with their psychological vulnerabilities, common with this type of radicalization. The loneliness, resentment, entitlement, and their community validates their anger. Another pattern we see with these groups is the belief that women deserve punishment for failing to reciprocate interest. In the incel worldview, rejection isn't a normal part of life, it's a personal attack, a deliberate cruelty, something that must be avenged. And this is the mindset that fuels harassment campaigns. This is where the threats start, threats of violence, of self harm meant to manipulate, threats to ruin her reputation. It often escalates into coordinated dogpiling, doxing, and obsessive monitoring of the woman's online presence. It's a way to try and reclaim the control or dominance after feeling slighted or ignored. And then there's revenge porn, which has become an increasingly common weapon. Sometimes it involves sharing real private photos without consent. Other times it's even more insidious, using AI to create fake explicit images of a woman who never said anything, never posed for anything, and never consented to anything. The rise of deepfake technology has made it stunningly easy for bad actors to produce explicit images using nothing more than publicly available pictures, a selfie, a LinkedIn photo, even a frame from a YouTube video. To the victims, the impact is the same as if they were real images: humiliation, fear, shame, the violation of being sexualized without consent. And to the perpetrator, it doesn't matter whether the photos are real or AI generated. It's still about domination. It's still about punishment. It's still about making a woman feel small, powerless, and afraid. What's even more disturbing is that in many incel spaces, this behavior isn't discouraged, it's celebrated. There's a kind of group validation that turns one's fixation into a community endorsed campaign of misogyny. The message is clear: women who reject them deserve retribution, and any tool that can deliver that emotional harm is seen as fair game. The impact this has on women is profound, emotionally, socially, and sometimes physically. What often gets overlooked in conversations about incels is that you don't have to be murdered or assaulted to be deeply harmed. Harassment, stalking, and sexualized intimidation leave real scars. Women who have been targeted describe constant fear, anxiety, loss of self confidence, shame, and humiliation. And speaking personally, while I haven't experienced this kind of harassment from strangers online, at least not yet, I have been harmed in other ways. I've been bullied online when I was in school. I've been homeless and vulnerable. I've been a victim of domestic violence, both as a toddler and as an adult. I've dealt with harassment both online and in person, and it's changed the way I move through the world. It's made me more vigilant, paranoid even. I don't open message requests. I don't add new people. I don't interact on certain platforms at all. I've yelled at my husband for not getting into the car fast enough or for not locking his door when we're out in public. I have cameras inside and outside of my home. I own a firearm. Every window in my house is frosted or blacked out. These are the adjustments you make when you've learned firsthand that some men feel entitled to your body, your attention, or your silence. You learn to anticipate danger long before it happens, and you learn that the fear stays with you, even when the threats aren't right in front of you. Now, sadly, this is only our introduction into the world of incels, and we have so much more to cover. Next week, we will be dipping our toes into the world of manosphere podcasts and the damage they are doing to young men. Until then, stay weird, stay curious. Morbid out.